Hello folks, Brew here, and this time around I'd like to present you a deck tech for blue-white Sram combo, or paradoxical outcome combo, based around Aeroflux Reservoir. So this is datpad.net, and I post all my refined and crazy ideas and builds over here on this account, which is nicked Banana77, but I'm gonna revive one of our accounts, so basically what I'm saying is that all the crazy deck lists and all the complete finished builds come to tapped.out.net on my side, and yeah, let's go for the deck. This is a deck tech after all, and I have this deck on paper. I haven't really played it online, but let's just say that it's came a long way. I started off with mono blue and then I shifted towards the blue-white build just because I think it's way better than the mono one. But on the other hand is that it's still a tier 2 deck at best. So if you don't want to invest too much, you're probably fine with just the mono version because the deck is probably not gonna conquer tournaments really. But it's pretty sweet, and even though it's FNM level kind of deck, but I enjoy it very much. So let's pick the mana base. Basically, 19 is good, but you can go as low as 18, but I wouldn't really recommend that. It depends on the build, of course. Perhaps if you have Anticipate in your build, then actually 18 is very justifiable. Yeah, basically, you want all kinds of duels. You probably normally would want a few less streams and much more aspires. You definitely want at least one Inventor's Fair just to search for Reservoir, the keycard main deck at least. You want one Plains just because you run Renegade map, so you want to search up for basic Plains to cast Sram sometimes on turn 2, something like that. If you add more spires you cut on an island, basically the point is that you don't want you definitely don't want more than one planes, and in mono version you can run two Inventor's Fair, but because of this one planes and because the deck really wants a lot of blue, so one fair is actually maximum, I think. And plus because of the white of this ram, you actually go through your deck much faster. So there is less needs for the second fair in that sense as well. Spires are better than streams just because you hate tapland. Supports will often come untapped because you have a bunch of islands, and of course they come untapped if you show stream as well because it's an island. But stream will often come tapped, and you do have one drops in case of 4 maps, and you have a bunch of 2 drops. So it's a bit tricky. So Spire is good because even though it hits you for 1, but you need all the blue mana in the world because everything you want to actually needs blue, basically apart from very few things. Yeah. Um, Now moving on. So you have 8 equips because you have Sram, so there is that, but that's not exactly enough for the combo, so I like a couple of Ornithopters main. But yeah, 10 Cheerios is actually enough. So Sram, of course, helps you to go through the deck. You can trigger it off of the Ornithopter or artifacts, but that's fine. Basically, how you win is that you cast or get it from the tutor, from the reservoir. And then if you have already stature in play, everything is real cheap and you can kind of convoke your artifacts to cast outcomes. Just basically cast outcomes, recast all the zeros and sometimes maps, and you can cycle through SRAM if and maybe sometimes you need to go through the motions one more turn. Hopefully you don't die by that time, and 4 Metallic Rebukes is actually vital in that sense because in this deck most of the time it's a 1 mana counter spell, so it's a 1 mana mana leak in this deck a lot of the time, and it's pretty crucial. Basically what you care is that they don't they cannot potentially have lethal, or they cannot Sahila Cat combo you out. So that's something to watch out for. Then Barrow's expertise treated basically as a combo piece on this deck. Yes, it does bounce some nice artifacts and creatures, some vehicles most of the time, or some big guys from black green and so on, or just try to maybe bounce their cat plus mana dork so that it's hard for them to kill you off like next turn, just to see that they can't go up to 6, so they can't cat untap and heal you. But yeah, a lot of the time with this card, what you do is that you just bounce a bunch of your zeros, well, 3 to be exact, and or bounce cranes, for example. Then for free from expertise, cast outcome or reservoir, and then just kind of go off right there. Sometimes you need to win extra turn. Engineer is crazy. It's basically draw free for 2 mana a lot of the time. Unfortunately, sorcery speed, but yeah. I really like cranes in this deck. Not only it's a blocker, but it really helps you impulse into reservoir or something like that. Just additional Cheerios just to cycle more with Sram. I could see 4 in this deck, but 3 is probably the minimum you should play. And speaking of the numbers, I really like 4 Srams in this deck. Yeah, he will die a lot and very often because of Fatal Push and all kinds of things. And you really want to draw it in any game. If you get flooded with Srams, it's not that bad because there is pretty high chance that they would have some early pressure, even 4 colors a Healy. So it's only tower decks and some weird other blue decks that will not have something that you would want to block or enchant or trade with. So treat this as a basically cycle a couple of cards, uh, champ or trade, and then play another one. It's fine. It's fine. I think it's fine because we run a couple of tutors, so we can basically be fine with just 3 copies of Reservoir, um, which our main condition main deck. So yeah, you just need to cast a bunch of spells in one turn and just hit them for 50, but you have to watch out, especially against Jeskai, even though I don't think it's a deck anymore. But some blue decks, so not only Jeskai, but tower decks, energy decks, will have disallow their main deck, and then you have to watch out. They can basically stifle the trigger and keep you at pretty low life total. Um, After you pay 50 for the ability, and then just shoot you down with the tower or shocks or stuff like that. So against blue decks, if you have mana open and they don't actually, you know, counter those outcomes or stuff like this, so watch out for that ridiculous interaction. So one of stature is fine. So 3, 1, and 2 is basically fine because around 4 SRAMs and 3 cranes. But numbers on this could be different. So basically, if you run, so if you don't run the Weir of Invention, you pretty much have to play 4 reservoirs, I would say. Also, if you don't run it, you probably want 2 statuaries. But this is pretty flexible. Sometimes just tutoring up an ornithopter just to survive, just to chump block is actually a thing. Um, yeah, you want to have 4 maps, but basically number of statue reservoirs, maps, weirs, and expertise in SRAM could fluctuate depending on how you feel about the deck. But I think these numbers are fine. If you have a lot of very fast Mardu builds in your meta, then you might want a third expertise main just to make sure that you don't die too quickly too often. But the cyber really helps, and My reasoning for playing 4 Srams, not only just because you want to draw it all the time in cycle, and playing and keeping 3 cranes and keeping 4 maps, and also a relatively high number of lands in the deck, is because I value those things a bit more than extra copies of some of the combo pieces, because you do find it eventually, and more or less fast, but without an extra land, without an extra map, without an extra SRAM, without an extra crane, your early development could be significantly crippled. So that's why I didn't want to cut any of those before other things. Moving on to sideboard, so you have a 40 for the combo. You have a backup plan in form of efficient construction. Basically, it's not only when they enter, but when you cast them. So if this is in play, they can only just kill this thing in response, and you still get at least one top tier of the first trigger. Basically, that's great against pretty much any deck, and all those top tiers have flying, so you can basically pressure their planeswalkers. They're probably not gonna have sweepers or master removal against you. But yeah, it's great because you don't have to actually draw exceptionally well. You don't have to draw the full package, so you can just keep on spamming a few tokens here and there, and that might be enough to win the game. Uh, because we're not mana blue, so we can't run Engulf the Shore. But we have Fumigate, which you basically just side in against a black, green, and 4 colors Sahili. They do have a lot of early stuff that you want to kill, even though they have planeswalkers and just a bunch of card advantage. But you need to stall in that matchup as well. But unless they have a very uh, aggressive build of Mardu, you don't need Fumigate against them. Basically, only if you feel like they don't have all this mid-late game in the sideboard, so if they're not gonna transform, and they probably won't, because one of ways for them to win is to actually uh, try to win as fast as possible, because if the game goes long, you're more likely to win than they are. Um, but yeah, let's just say that if you see Talia's and Ballista's main deck, then I would be really skeptical about Borden and Fumigate after Cyber. Crash is good against 4 color, good against Black Green, of course. Not so much against Mardu, but still okay. Basically, why it's still in the deck, because it resets the full combo, so they have to have 6 mana, or they have to have both pieces already. Buys you a lot of time. Yes, the token will die very often because of the fatal push, but it's okay. And yeah, sometimes you can have those weird games when you just win with this 8/8 Kraken. So, uh, it's a thing. Well, it's not a Kraken, it's an octopus, but it is in our mind it's a Kraken kind of thing because of the size and what actually happens with this card. I like it pretty much in any matchup, um, and it's important to think about this card, because a lot of the time with Recybert you kind of transform the deck. So negates are these spells, so you need some counter magic here, but I only have 2 negates here just because I actually have 4 spell callers now in the sideboard. Uh, so the thing is that you're expecting them to side out creature removal, and then you can board in spell quellers, and it's a good blocker. And there are sometimes some again weird games when you actually kill your opponent with spell quellers, just because you actually can pump them with the bone saws, and also sort of protect them from all kinds of things with the Kafar shield, so that's a thing. And yeah, you can protect Squallers with the Rebuke, and then if sometimes if you bounce them back with the expertise, well, not so much expertise, I would say Rebuke Crush, uh, you can give them back some spell that is not really impacting the game that much, and then just cast a Queller later for something more important. So yeah, you basically board them in a lot of the time in the matchups where you also bring in the Crush and Fumigate, but you can play around that, and let's just say that uh, very few spells that they have actually matter all that much to you. So mainly you just don't want to free up a combo piece, and that's mostly it, or just something that might straight out kill ya, but then again, well, you can play around that, but I just think that it's essential to have this kind of versatile cards in the sideboard. Just much better than extra counters or just removal or whatever. Just can answer almost anything, and you still get a blocker and something to attack with. So it's just not pretty sweet. There's a reason why just guys have been playing those in the sideboard for a very long time. So as for the transformation post sideboard, what you do is basically um, against pretty much against 4 color, you can basically side in all 15. And as for what you often will take out, if you bring in Fuming Gates or Crush, which will probably happen quite often, then you cut off expertise because it's not as efficient as the other ones you bring in. You may cut one Sram, you may cut Cranes just because you board in Fumigates and Crushes, but Crush is actually fine with the Crane. And then you probably take out the Tutors because not only a combo is much less likely, but also because you bring an extra backup plan as a win con in form of construction, so you might just win off of that. And it's just a power struggle basically after sideboard, so you can also probably take out the statuary because against blue decks resolving uh, outcomes and stuff will be much harder, and also because you take out the tutors, and the combo is just much less of a thing, and yeah, you're becoming this kind of weird tempo control deck that just wants to cast a construction and win off that way. Um, what else you're gonna cut? Because a lot of the time after sideboard, the matchup will slow down, um, and you will have more ways to actually stall with authority and fumigates and crush. Sometimes even with construction, if you get lucky, just to make a bunch of top tiers. So you take out the maps, but yeah, in some matchups you might bring in part of the sideboard but keep the map. So it depends on the speed and how you think your opponent is gonna transform his deck after sideboard. So that's basically the general tips. So, you can play around with the deck and tune in some numbers, but I think this is the safest version, I would say. So I've seen people playing the 4/4 improvised guy in the slot of construction. I've tried a bunch of different things, like even the kind of affinity 5/6 Krakens that become real cheap if you have a bunch of artifacts in play. I've tried even the Sphinx of the Final Word, which you can sometimes cheat in for cheap with the statuary, and Dog Hand, the 1-man artifact, and the Hope Gearpoor, and Everflux Fury or something like that, the 4-man kind of art, the artifact that you can play the extra land, and then if you're hellbent at the upkeep you can draw 3, but that's symmetrical, so opponent also can do that. but it's just to refill your hand. But I don't like that plan, it's just so unsafe, and that's relying a lot on the weird invention, which is not that bad, but it just doesn't work out. So I've tried a pretty big tutor package in the sideboard, also with this thing, and some prisms and terrarians in the slot of some cheap artifacts, so that you actually not just have zeros but something that cycles, and then this way you have in the board the red puzzle node, so you can actually their sideboard against combo tutor up the red puzzle node just to kill Sahili. But yeah, I just don't like that plan. It's just not proactive enough, I think. With Queller, you just counter whatever Planeswalker or just fill their garden, then you have a flyer to actually pressure their Sahili that's already in play or something like this. So that's a much better plan. Yeah, you can actually, in the main or in the sideboard, experiment with a few more tools from Blue-White Tempo, not just spell Quellers. You could try some other things as well. But I think Spellcore is the only thing that you kind of want from that other archetype. Okay, guys, I think that's about it for the deck as far as the general tips and guidelines are concerned. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe or check the links in the description below. And until the next sale, goodbye, folks.